and welcome to my live where we talk about all things podcasting, where you can ask questions, any questions about your challenges and experience or struggles doing your podcast, or if you are just starting your podcast or planning to start a podcast, you can just reach out or ask questions here. And of course, you can ask questions in advance since I'm doing um, all things podcasting live every Wednesday. So I just have to say that last week I didn't make it to go live because my sister it is my sister's wedding exactly Wednesday last week. So let's just talk about all your questions regarding podcasting today. So if you're watching this live, please share so that other people can watch or learn, or they might get clarity from this live. All right. So I don't have yet questions sent to me, but I have questions prepared for us to talk about. All right. So here you go. So I will be adding here questions on my screen. But before that, I will check first if I am already live. All right. So, yeah, I guess we are going live on LinkedIn, and also we are going live on YouTube. So, I hope you all having a wonderful day. It's 11 a.m. here in the Philippines, and I'm excited to talk about these questions I have today on our live. All right. So, let's start with the very simple questions until we go deep to some big questions. All right, so I have here simple questions. Um, question. I mean question. I will put it here. All right. All right. Can you see it on the screen? So should I start with video or stick to audio only? So this question is probably for those who want to start or thinking to start a podcast. So it will be, for me, it will be up to you if you are already comfortable doing video recording. If you are just, because I know podcasters who started podcasting audio only because they're not comfortable having video while podcasting that in the beginning. So they just recording via audio, they upload their podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and when they are already ready, to speak in front of the camera, take video, and have a guest, they started doing video. So it's up to you in the level of your comfortability taking video. If you're already comfortable doing video, you can do both video and audio, but if not, you can do audio. It's up to your comfortability. All right, so that is our first question. So the next question here is, how do I choose the right podcast name? All right. So, how do I choose the right podcast name and niche? So, this is something I always talk about to the to my clients wherein they want to, to start a podcast. Um of course, first thing, you started a podcast with a purpose. You are not just doing podcast because you want to start a podcast. You want to start a podcast with the purpose, with a vision, why is doing it, with the mission. So, of course, choosing the right podcast name will of course depends on your vision and mission of doing your podcast. Podcast name can be, of course, related to your niche. It will go together, the niche and the podcast name. For example, you talk about career, high performer careers. Of course, your podcast name must talk about all things career. Being you are a coach, something like that. You are a high performer coach. So your podcast name must be aligned on that. And I suggest your podcast name must be succinct and easy to understand. If you are in the perspective of your audience, if you say your podcast name, for example, is Loki Genius Podcast, is that easy to remember? Or something like when your audience saw your podcast name, they will are they going to be interested or curious about what you talk about in your podcast? Something like that. So it should spark curiosity, something like that. So yeah, so make answer about how do you're going to choose the right podcast name and niche. I'm watching now the live. If I can, if the question is popping, all right. Let me check. All right, all right. So I guess the questions are getting seen in the screen very clearly. Um. All right. By the way, this live was sponsored by Riverside. I'm using Riverside FM. If you are looking for a software where you can record at the same time, edit your podcast episode, Riverside is my um, recommendation. Why? Because in Riverside, you can go live. At the same time, you can hit record here and high quality video. At the same time, you can edit here your full episode, like your podcast. You can edit here your podcast. You can also create clips out of your full video. You can get the transcriptions, something like that. So you should check out Riverside. All right, if you're wanting to start a podcast, or if you are already have a podcast but having a hard time recording your podcast, you have to try Riverside. So yeah, another question here: how do I eliminate background noise and echo? So talking about this one, background noise, echo, other noises that can affect the focus and the quality of your audio is you should invest in a quality mic. Not because there is a mic that not really that expensive, but good quality, or also can have a noise reducer. Something like this mic that I'm using. This is only like 40 or $50. I ordered online, and I ordered online for $50, and it sounds okay. The most important is your audience or your listeners can hear you clearly. So it will depend on your focus. But if your focus is on the audio only, you should invest in the high quality mic so that the crisp of your voice, the tone of your voice is very clearly, because the audio is very important when it comes to podcasting. If you're focused on your listeners, okay, it will depend on your focus. If your focus is on video, it's not, it's okay to have something like this. The most important is you are understandable. All right. So yeah. So and to eliminate background noise, first thing is invest in good quality mic, not that expensive, but good quality, like dynamic mic. I recommend dynamic microphone for podcasting. And the next thing is it will be on the editing part. If there is still noise, background noise that caught in the recording, you can eliminate that by using software like CapCut or Opus Clip or something like Riverside. You can edit the background noise by using it. All right. So yeah, I have an interesting question here. Like, let me show you how much editing is too much editing. So for me, I am not really editing much on my own podcast. I only edit the intro. All right. I only edit the in the full video. I only edit the what you call this, the teaser video, like the video that I show in front, the highlights of the full episode. That's the only thing I edit because you should engage the audience or get the attention of your audience with the first 3 seconds of your video. So you should create a highlight video for your every episode so that your audience has an already an insight what they can expect in the full episode. All right. So yeah, something like that. So I am just removing some of the filler words in the full video, and if the guest requested some things they said that they want to be removed, so we can remove that. But I am not really editing like the pauses sometimes because it will be more when you are having a video podcast. Having a pause is okay because it is where your audience sometimes is engaged because it is more natural. It is more natural, and yeah, because if it only clips like there's no pauses and no like the guest is just speaking so fast. When it comes to video, it's not really good, you know. So I'm not really editing much. I only edit the highlight video. So you have to create a very engaging highlight video about your full episode so that your audience have an insight or idea of what they can expect in the full episode. All right. So I suggest you create a teaser video for your episode. Um. All right. So let me check. Let me check if there are people who are watching or the people who are asking questions in the comments. So if you have any questions and you're watching this video like right now, please feel free to comment down your questions. Mm, another question here. Um, should I use music or sound effects in my podcast? So regarding this question, it for me, it will depend on your style because there are people who wants to use music, sound effects on their podcast, and sometimes there are people who want their podcast as simply as possible. Some people are using background music on their podcast, like in the beginning part, like an intro and an outro. But in the full conversation, there's no music, background music, and there are podcasters who are using sound effects in the full conversation in the gesture something like that. It's okay. but it will still depends on your preference of style, the tone of your podcast. If you want music or sound effects. All right. So this is one. This question is another question. This is very interesting question because it talks about social media, how you are going to promote your podcast on social media without sounding spammy. So I am promoting 20 plus content per episode because I believe most of my audience are on social media, and if they don't have time watching or listening to the full episodes, they can get the snippets from the full episodes. For example, I talk about a specific topic and I cut it and I put it into clips and they watch it because it's just a 1 minute video clip. So they still got something in my full episode. So I promote and I highly recommend to create contents from your podcast like clips, infographics, quotes, carousels, and blogs. Blogs because sometimes there are people um, who are likely to read than to listen. They have time to read. So like 2 to 3 minutes read. In that 2 to 3 minutes read, all of the information that you talk about in the podcast are in there in summary. So something like that. So I kind of really like creating blogs for my podcast. For example, I talk about 5 topics in my podcast. And if I talk about 5 topics in my podcast with my guests, I created 5 blog posts. I tackle all the topics, what we talk about. So I specify all the topics and I highlighted it so that people can get the value from the full episodes. If they don't have the time to watch all the full video. All right. So that's it. You can promote your podcast on social media without being or sounding spammy by being authentic, by just showing like who you are. And sometimes I notice this to some of my connections on LinkedIn with their podcast. They're just creating clips and uploading it, creating clips, contents, and uploading it without any other like strategy on posting content. It will looks like spammy if you are just posting all clips. I know someone who's is creating clips, but all of his clips are on his profile without any other types of contents. You have to blend or like this, like clips. You choose infographics, you do carousels, so that it is much more engaging. In your audience will not get overwhelmed with all the clips, with all the infographics only. You post clips, infographics, carousels, not clips, 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 clips. So your audience will not get overwhelmed, and more likely they will not engage or they are not going to be interested in what you are putting out because it is not really engaging. All right, because they will get overwhelmed if even if you create a very good clips, they will get overwhelmed if you are only creating clips. So you have to mix it by doing clips, infographics like that, thumbnails. You have to play with it so people will get interested in what you're doing. All right, because sometimes they don't have much. Because people sometimes they don't have much time watching the clip, but they have time to read a single quote about your podcast, about the topic that you talk about in your podcast. All right. So that's it. So that is my question on how you can promote your podcast on social media without sounding is spammy. Mm, I have here an interesting question that is, something like finding a guest for me is not really, really hard. It I think it will be depending on your target guest. All right? Because there are some of specific niche that you are going to have a hard time looking for guests for your podcast. So, I have here a question like, what are some ways to find great podcast guests? So, for me, when I am looking for a podcast guest, since I am guesting, I am bringing on um, podcasters on my podcast to talk about their story, what they do, why they started their podcast. So, there are a lot of podcasters out there. Before I just invite any podcasters. But right now, you have to be strategic on bringing on a podcast. Still, you have to think of their um, you know, their goal, their purpose. For example, for me, I want to bring on people on the podcast that the goal is to grow also on LinkedIn to showcase their service. Because when I bring in podcast guests, and I create contents from the episodes and I help them promote their service using my podcast. So if they're not promoting it, you help them promote their service, something like that, but still they are not helping you promote it. They're not sharing it. They are not, supporting or even responding to the to your tags, to the comments. So it's not a good sign that they are a great podcast guest because you are helping them, to promote their own service by being a guest and creating contents for them. So to choose or to find the great podcast guest, you can check them if they are consistently creating contents for their feed also. Like they are consistently creating three times, three, 5 times content per week. They are active on engaging and promoting their service, meaning if you create contents for them, they will probably reshare it or support you. Even if they don't reshare or repost the content, they are going to at least like or comment. All right? So, something like that. Because if your goal is to grow, your podcast guest must, of course, willing to grow also. If you are just starting out or beginner or just your goal is to grow your podcast, it will depends on your goal for finding your guest, great guest. So if your podcast is focused on bringing on consultants, coaches, check their content, check how they post, check how consistent they are. All right, because that's how you are going to promote because they are going to help you. Or if you have another purpose, like if you are bringing them on your podcast to showcase your service to them, to create a relationship, so it's okay. So it will depend on the purpose of doing your podcast. So another question here, this is a very good question, really. I like this question a lot. Let's talk about, how do I prepare for an interview and keep it flowing naturally? This is one of the questions I have from one of my new client. Like she's just starting out, and of course, she needs some advice about how to interview. So what I say about this is, first thing is you have to research about your guest. You have to know. them by simply looking at their LinkedIn profile, looking at their website, looking at their YouTube channel, so you have an insights what they do, what they offer, and what they like, something like that. And another thing is, don't ask questions that are, you know, deep, really deep question or too long questions, because it will not help have a good flow in the conversation. So something like this: if you're going to talk about your guest, asking your guest about what they do, you can just ask them about what is their current projects, how the project's going. So the conversation's going like your guest is not talking like 10 minutes until you speak again. All right? So it must be a conversational. So like ask simple questions, follow up questions until you go deep. Don't start with a deep question. Start with the very simple questions that lead to the deep conversation. All right? And just have a casual conversation. Create a talking points and ask questions about it. I suggest, if you are just starting out, you list down questions for your guest, but don't read it like that. It's just a talking points, so you don't miss a topic that you want to talk about with your guest. All right, and ask simple questions so that your guest can be comfortable talking with you. Because sometimes, if your questions are, is too deep and something like that, your guest will be uncomfortable and it will not become a conversational, but it become like an interview. So it can be something like, podcast is really good if it's become conversational. So this is one thing. Another question, I think, uh I have two last question here. Let's talk first about, this is an interesting question. Let's talk about when is the right time to start monetizing. You can start monetizing at the very first beginning of doing a podcast. It will depend. There are a lot of ways you can monetize your podcast. First, by promoting a service. Second, by promoting a product. Third, by having a sponsor. And other thing, by having an affiliate. So other things. It is depends on the purpose of the podcast. So there is no right time. It will depends on the purpose. If you are promoting products, you can promote it right away. If you have having a guest, you are showing or promoting a service, you can promote your service right away, something like that. So there is no right time. Just promote at the very first time so that your audience already knew what's the purpose of your podcast. Because sometimes if you're sugarcoating the way of you doing a podcast, people will get conscious about why you doing a podcast. So you just be honest. Why you doing podcast? Why it's your purpose? Just be honest. If you're promoting a product, promote a product. If you're promoting a service, promote a service. But don't or push hard, like selling hard your service or your product. Just showcase the product or the service, and if people want your product or service, they will just buy from you. But if they don't want, just let them be. All right, don't push things, because it will cost you their trust. All right, and you can have a sponsor, by the way, by just reaching out to the brands that are or company that are aligned with your goal. You can't reach out to brands to get sponsors that are not aligned with your goals. For example, you have a podcast and you are promoting your podcast is all about talking about coaches, consultants, and you pitch a brand, a wellness brand, something like that, and the brand is not aligned. So they likely not sponsor you. So you should think of ways how you can align sponsors with your podcast. For example, I am doing a podcast, guesting, having bringing on podcasters, and I'm promoting my service, helping podcasters, promoting how I'm doing it. So I have a sponsor, Riverside. Riverside is a software where podcasters can record, edit their podcast, and other things. So it is aligned with my service, with my purpose of doing a podcast. So it should be aligned. All right. CapCut and Opus Clip. Podcasters are using Opus Clip to clip their podcast. So it is aligned. So you should have a sponsor or look for a sponsor that are aligned with your podcast, with your audience, of course, because that's how your sponsors will benefit from you. All right. And I think we're already on 20 minutes. This is my last um, question. Mm, let me look for my last question. I think this question should be really, really good so that um, you get something from this life. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM or comment down so that we can answer that next week. I think I already answered this. How do I get podcast sponsors? What are the alternatives to sponsorship for making money? How can I? All right. Since this is my last question, I should not have. I maybe I ask question. I'm the one who asks questions now. So my last question. Let me ask you a question. If you are an agency owner, service provider, or coach, consultant, what's the biggest thing holding you back from starting your podcast? And why you should start a podcast? Here, let me tell you something about why you should start a podcast. Starting a podcast can help you boost your presence and bring value to you and to your service. How? By guesting your target audience, you are building not just value, authority, but also relationship. Because one of my friend on LinkedIn, I met on LinkedIn, he said that business should be built through relationship, good relationship. Business with good relationship prosper. So podcasting is a 30-minute conversation to 40 minutes conversation, and conversation can build relationship. It is how you know the person. It is how you connect. And it's how you can truly connect with them and ask them how you can truly help them by asking questions, by talking with them. Because sometimes posting a contents of you are not really direct. But if you have a podcast, you are getting their full attention, 30 minutes full attention. That's your chance of showing how capable you are on helping them with their problems on their business or whatever they're doing by showing how you can help them with your service, something like that. So if you don't start a podcast by because it is on trend. You start a podcast to build the relationship. It is um one of the best. But how can I say this word? But podcasting is one of the underuse. What I can call is underuse because I still can see a lot of people who are not using podcasts or start a podcast, but they stop because they don't know the value from it. They don't see how they can utilize it to grow their business, to use it as a business engine, like a marketing um, alone. You can use podcasting as your marketing alone by using a podcast to promote your service. All right. So if you have any question about starting a podcast or growing your existing podcast, feel free to reach out, send me a DM, and let's talk how I might be able to help you. All right. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you have some takeaways from what all I'm saying here. So see you all next Wednesday. Bye bye.